Hi, I'm Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with Rudolph Araujo, who is the Senior Director of Cybersecurity at Arista Networks. Rudolph, always nice to catch up.
Yeah, same here, Ed, and appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me today.
Today I want to talk to you about network security in the organization. So this is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. Does network security sit as a separate group from the networking team? Is it part of IT? Is it part of network, or is it part of the CISO-led team? I'm guessing that this is probably a topic that you guys have spent a lot of time thinking about, both at Awake and also at Arista. Am I right in at least framing that this is an issue with a lot of companies?
It is, right? I mean, it's one of those meaning of life type questions, Ed, and I'll try and give it my best shot, right? But in many ways, I feel like you having run one of these organizations might have some great perspectives too. But yes, I mean, I do think it's an area that customers struggle with because of a couple of things, right? I think one is there's not a clear demarcation of, hey, this is your responsibility versus this is mine. Network security ultimately sits on the network, inspects the network. A lot of times the actions that it uh, recommends have to be taken by the network. Yet, security is a slightly different skill set. Does it sit in the SOC? So I think customers do struggle with this, right? And it's a good topic to kind of, I think, investigate, if you will.
I mean, foundationally, it comes down to whether security is a noun or a verb, right? And I think we would all agree, or a noun or an adjective, rather. I think we would agree that the idea of securing the network, there's nothing intrinsic about security that drives a company. It's a property. So my feeling is that whatever you do, the people need to be working together. You can't do networking over here and security as the separate thing. Would you agree that regardless of the organization, there had better be a very tight connection there?
100%, right? I mean, I love this analogy that, again, one of our customers uses. Is like, you don't go to a car store or car showroom and say, hey, I want a safe car, right? I mean, it's kind of a given that, when you're going to be buying a car, it's going to come with seat belts and it's going to come with airbags, at least in this day and age, right? Yet, for whatever reason, we think it's okay to buy a network and then layer security in a variety of different ways on top of it, right? So I do think that, as you aptly put it, security definitely should be an adjective, a descriptor of the network, as opposed to being this noun that, or this cornucopia of products that gets added on top of the network. And I think to a large extent, if you look at other attributes of the network, right, performance being a great example, again, you don't go buy a network and then say, okay, hey, let me add a performance layer on top of it, right? The network is expected to be performant and available and so on. And I think it's time for security to kind of grow up into that into that role.
One thing I've found is that a good way to ensure that there's cooperation and coordination is to cross-fertilize a little bit. Like to have some of your better people move back and forth between the two teams, because inevitably you are going to have two different teams. There are going to be people who have to deal with the day-to-day work activities in running a network, including dealing with customer issues and trouble tickets and things that a security team would very much shy away from. So there'll be that staff. And then there's people like you and myself that, when we're dealing with network security, we have a separate set of concerns. But what do you think about that? Like the cross-fertilization, it sounds good on paper. I don't know. You guys, when you're doing your selling, you probably deal with two very different types on the network and security side. Do you think such cross-fertilization is likely to happen at scale? Do you ever see it with your customers?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, right? And I think, Ed, I might have actually heard this from you in the past as well. We've got a number of customers that have started this rotation kind of system, right? Not just within security, where people might rotate through different kind of functions within security, but also between the network and the security. Because you're right, one of the challenges I think a lot of times we see is, these two teams can be at loggerheads, right? Because they might have like opposing requirements or opposing kind of views, if you will, of how the network should be operated. And I think having that walk in the other person's shoes kind of, to quote the old proverb, does actually make a big difference. And I see a lot of the more mature customers, especially from a security and a networking perspective, they do have that cross pollination happening, where it could be someone just sitting in a SOC shift for a week, just to see, okay, hey, what is the network telling the security guys? And it's amazing how living that in that other person's life kind of exposes you to what their challenges are and makes you, frankly, a better teammate in many ways.
Yeah, I would say shared metrics would be a second thing that's absolutely essential. So if everyone has a common set of gold metrics like, uptime and avoidance of outage and customer sat, both internal and external, those are the kinds of things that when shared really drive people to work together. I would imagine your platform, that's probably something, as you guys provide metric support for network security programs. That's probably something that pops up. Do I have that right?
Yeah, no, if you think about it, I think metrics is certainly the way to measure, right? But it's really, again, it goes back to those outcomes that customers are expecting. And when a network goes down, it's not just the network person's fault. It's not just the security person's fault, right? There has to be that joint sense of ownership. And the metrics are a good way to kind of monitor that, right? Hopefully, you're not waiting for the network to go down to have that aha moment, but being able to kind of have joint ownership of what the metrics are and what each team or each individual needs to do to achieve those metrics, I think becomes really, really critical, right? Again, I'll give you an anecdote from one of our customers. They've really started to think about this idea, just like you have fault tolerance and disaster recovery and things like that. This idea of security breach tolerance, right? So as a breach occurs, you can't avoid every possible breach, right? But how can we be tolerant of it in a way that minimizes the impact to our users, minimizes the impact to the business, so on and so forth? And that's kind of one of the metrics that they're measuring, not just, again, hopefully not when a breach happens, but when a red teaming activity occurs, or when you bring in someone on the outside to run a test that you may or may not know is happening. Do you have that tolerance metric in place, if you will?
Well, I guess we can conclude that you and I would say that the goal here is to combine and to have coordination, regardless of where you report organizationally. As long as those teams are coordinating and communicating, I think we probably would agree that that's the most important thing organizationally. Is that kind of the takeaway here?
I think that's pretty fair, right? I mean, if you think about it, with all of the technology we have today, with all of the AI and the automation and so on, there really shouldn't be a ton of reasons to have a broken down kind of communication path between these two teams, right? Even if they're separate teams. And in a lot of cases, they are separate because they certainly have their own unique needs as well. But the ability to kind of automatically kind of connect these two, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples here. You know, capturing the right traffic based on whatever is the need of the hour, right? Like if you're dealing with a particular type of threat, or you've got a particular set of applications that you're more interested in right now, that doesn't have to require a whole bunch of tickets being created and 6 days of monitoring, and then an outage window and so on. Can we get kind of programmability, right? API driven kind of calls that go from maybe the security tool to the packet monitoring tool or the packet broker tool, so that you can automatically tell that, I want to monitor Kerberos for the next 6 days because there's this new 0-day vulnerability out there that is exploiting something in Kerberos, right? So I think the ability to automate that also takes away a lot of that friction that maybe some organizations experience. So that's definitely a big recommendation that we would make, and I think a lot of our customers are employing as well.
Very helpful advice, as always, from you, Rudolph. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today on this topic. And
Yeah,
look forward
always.
to catching up with you again. Nice to see you.
Yeah, same here, Ed. Take care, and I look forward to talking to you again as well.
You bet. And everyone, thanks for watching.